Yes, yes we are. Live on Facebook, live on Instagram. Everybody's here. Well, yeah, I'm here with both of y'all on both platforms. Yeah, still haven't quite got that like multiple platform streaming thing going yet. Hey, Melody Thomas. Yeah, still haven't quite got that yet, but that's okay. Someday I will do that thing, and you know, then it'll be super fancy. It'll be amazing. How are you? How are y'all? It's Wednesday. It is Wednesday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. So, 11 a.m. Eastern Time. And as you likely know, my name is Dr. Shannon Coates, and I am a voice teacher and maximizer, helping folks, voice teachers especially, to, I know, it snowed here too, right? Like what the what? Yeah, there's snow outside. If you look out my window there, there's snow. That's snow out there. Anywho, I am a voice teacher and voice educator, voice pedagogy educator, helping voice teachers to maximize their voice teaching. So not just with anatomy and physiology, of course, but also with how to teach. So some of the things that we don't really get a lot of information about in our training, even if we have done a voice pedagogy course or masters or something along those lines. Even if we have done that, we often don't have a lot of training in literally how to teach, communication, how to do all those things. So that's why I developed the Vocal Instrument 101, which is mostly anatomy and physiology online course that is self-directed. And also now am doing teacher training practicums where we get together, very intense, generally 2 to 3 week long intensives, where we get together and we apply concepts directly into our teaching along with our colleagues. So some of the concepts that we apply are like the ones that we're going to talk about today. So I'm going to talk about those things, how to make your cancellation policies a little bit more inclusive, or a lot more inclusive, as the case may be. And for example, if we were the next time I do a neurodivergent voice teaching practicum, this is one of the things that we will be really intensely working to have to apply in the voice studios of the teachers that I will be working with in that practicum. So stay tuned for that if you're interested in that, and of course get on the mailing list if you would like to get the updated information as soon as it comes out, or at least as soon as I send out the email. Anyway, all right. Today I wanted to talk about inclusivity in the voice studio, and I did make some notes for myself. I'm not talking right off the cuff today, which is probably a good thing. Made some notes, so if I'm looking down, that's why, because I'm just making sure that I'm staying on track. As I said in one of my posts today on my personal page, I've never actually finished one of those like online ADHD tests because they're like too boring. I'm like, oh, that might be a good indicator right there. I probably don't even need to finish the test. They're too boring. So not enough excitement in those online ADHD quizzes to tell whether or not you have adult ADHD. Ha ha ha, what do you know? All right, let's talk about inclusivity in the studio. And let's talk specifically about how we can, right, Jen? I know. Let's talk specifically about our cancellation policies and how we can make our cancellation policies even more inclusive. So the goal here, overall, the goal is, oh yes, Carla, exactly. This is inclusivity along the whole thing. Ah, Melody, my ASD, right? The layout is making me crazy. Wait, that's probably an indication. Yes, I know, exactly. Anyway, so the goal, here's the goal overall. The goal overall, from my experience and from having neurodivergent kids, is the goal is that we as voice teachers set up our studio in such a way that no one feels the need, and this is like super idealistic goal, right? But that no one feels the need to have to ask for accommodations. So again, big, huge goal, but I would love to see that, right? So that all of our students feel like they don't even have to tell you that they have, I don't know, maybe a chronic illness that will possibly cause them to have to miss voice lessons, for example, or that they have ADHD, for example, that may cause them to seem unfocused or not be able to practice well, or that they have whatever that thing may be, right? What we really would love overall is that everyone feels like, hey, this is a place where the thing works for me, where I am, and I don't have to out myself to my teacher in order to make this thing successful for me. What? That would be amazing. Anyway, here we go. That's the goal. So I'm talking specifically, really quite specifically today, I think, to independent teachers especially. So those of you who are running your own voice studios, your own businesses, and who are the bosses. So you're in charge, and so then you have the ability to set the things that, like, to set things up the way that you would like them to be set up. And one of the things, the sort of pain points around cancellation policies is, and the reason that we sort of have these like anxiety around cancellation policies is because, in my experience anyway, there's sort of like three fears, I think. One of the fears is that if we don't have a strict enough cancellation policy, so, you know, you cancel within 24 hours or 72 hours, if you cancel, you have to cancel before 24 hours or 72 hours in order for me to make up the lesson, or in order for you to get, in order for you to either switch the lesson, or in order for you to not pay for that lesson. Is that we're scared, we're afraid as independent teachers that our students are going to take advantage of that, right? That somewhere out there, someone is going to take advantage of that, and they're going to call in, you know, and say, and they're going to cancel just because they just didn't want to go. Right? So that's one of the fears. Folks won't get attention, will take advantage of a lax studio policy. One of the other fears is just that we won't get paid, right? So like that is definitely a fear, right? So if I have a lax studio policy where people can just cancel whenever, then, and I have all these holes in my schedule every week, I'm not going to get paid, right? If I have this lax studio policy. And the other thing that is sort of like an internal fear, I think sometimes, is like, what if I'm not doing a good enough job to actually keep them coming every week? Like, what if they're not actually doing, like, what if I'm not actually like teaching well enough, or I'm not motivating them well enough for them to actually keep coming every week? So we have these kind of like internalized things, and we ourselves have been part of studios where we've been expected to be there every single week, and we have internalized this kind of like, if I don't come every single week, well, so what does it say then? If we expect, let me go back and say, so that first fear, folks will take advantage of me. I want to just say that if that is happening in your studio, and if there is an issue where folks are taking advantage of you, I would suggest, first of all, that you have not yet done the work to create the boundaries and to create the studio policies that are going to work best for you, right? And you may not yet have done the work to have the students in your studio who are right for your studio. So keep that in mind. I am not saying that you are a bad person, or that, you know, you've done something wrong, okay? I'm saying consider that if this is actually happening, that you are being taken advantage of, consider that you have taught people how to treat you that way, and that there's a better way. Pinky swear, there is a better way. The second thing, we won't get paid. So I am not here to say that an inclusive studio policy, a cancellation policy, means that students can cancel willy-nilly and you don't get paid. That is not what I'm here to say. Okay, so just put that fear behind you. That is not a thing. No, no, no. You still get paid. We'll talk about that in a minute. And also the thing of like, I'm not good enough to keep them engaged and keep them coming every week. That's probably not true. Okay, so that's something internal, and it's just like not true. I'm just telling you that right now. If you have singers coming to your studio, just like, no. So what does it say if we expect every student to come to every single lesson? What does it say, right? Yay, no worries. What does that say? Part of what that says is, and this has been ingrained in us as well, right? This idea that you commit to something, you come every week, and you do the thing that you've committed to. And something that this says is when we say you have to come every single week at this same time every single week, and we put that into a sort of an ironclast, like we sort of iron cast policy, and we kind of put that into our policies. What that might say or could say is that we believe that if you don't come every week, you're lazy, you're undisciplined, you're not dedicated, you don't want it badly enough, right? So that can read that way. And of course, that is not our intention. We are not trying to say to our students, you're lazy, you're not dedicated, you don't want it badly enough, right? So of course, that's not what we're saying. However, that is what we might unintentionally be saying, right? We very well might unintentionally and subconsciously be saying, I believe that if you don't come to your lessons every week, you are not dedicated, you are lazy, you don't want this badly enough. Yeah. So have a little consideration around that, because reasons that students miss their lessons, overwhelmingly, in my experience, once you have set up a studio where it's okay to miss lessons, and I'm going to talk about how to do that in just a second. Overwhelmingly, the reasons that students miss their lessons is because they simply cannot. And it's not because they're too lazy or they're not dedicated. Here are reasons that students have missed lessons in my studio. Chronic illnesses, Crohn's, for example, Ehlers-Danlos, for example, chronic mental illness, so anxiety, depression. Folks who are neurodivergent often don't sleep well. It's very, very common to not sleep well. Folks, especially folks with autism, autistic folks, very, very common to not sleep well. So this is something that if you're not sleeping well, how can you function the next day? Folks who are disabled and who have to take special public transport to get to their lessons. So I have worked with folks who have to take special public transport. We're talking like 4-hour round trip for a 15 minutes, yes, driving to my house sometimes and being so tired that you probably shouldn't be on the road, right? You probably shouldn't be driving because you're so tired. Oh, because you did not get a good sleep the night before, for whatever reason. Folks who have chronic migraines, folks who have invisible disabilities, folks who, as I was saying before, folks who need to take public transit, and not just folks who need to take public transit, like a specialized public transit, because perhaps they're in a wheelchair or perhaps they can't go on the subway, for example, but folks who just in general need to take public transit. Those folks are taking like a 4-hour round trip on public transit because they have to wait for like the specialized vehicle to come and get them, and they can only book them at certain times, or they have to pay a lot of money for an Uber, for example, but it has to be a very specific kind of Uber that can fit their wheelchair, or that has the ability to put their walker in it, has the space for a walker, for example. So folks who have like all of those kinds of things, like you can't give me 72-hour notice if you're going to have a Crohn's flare-up. You can't give me 24-hour notice if you're going to have a migraine. I mean, sometimes you can feel them coming on, of course, but I think you know what I'm talking about here, right? I think you understand. You can't give me 24-hour notice if you're going to have like, I'm going to have a particularly nasty sleep tonight. Pretty sure, right? It's going to be particularly bad tonight. So here's your 24-hour notice that I can't make it to my lesson tomorrow. So all of these I don't sleep well, taking public transit, migraines, Crohn's, like all of these mental illness, depression, anxiety, neurodivergence, all of these, in many ways, invisible differences that create this inequity in ability, just sheer ability to be able to get to a lesson. And that includes to be able to get to an online lesson. If you have a migraine, there is no way that you are going to be on a device. You can't. Your eyes, you can't do it. I've had like 3 migraines in my whole life, and I can't do it. Parents that have shift work, yes, or if a family isn't well, for children who are in precarious living situations, or just even parents, yes, parents who have shift, parents who are not talking to each other and miscommunicate, and the student doesn't get to come to their lesson, and it's no fault of the students, right? So these are all so many ways that when we say, if you're just dedicated enough, you will come to every single lesson every single week. And that's just not true, right? It's just not true. So when we think about that, and we think about the fact that, okay, everything in my training and my experience of taking voice lessons has been that I have to come to every single lesson every single week, or I miss out, right? So everything in my training has said that, and everything in my experience in the studio has said that. So now we're going to just consider, how can we make it so that in our studios that isn't the way that we work, that our students are able to do what they can do and still get all of the great training that is available to them from your studio and from taking voice lessons with you. So first thing, if you are working in a pay per lesson scenario in your studio, please let me encourage you, deeply, deeply encourage you to figure out how not to work on a pay per lesson basis in your voice studio. Okay, let me just encourage you on that one, especially if you're in a traditional voice studio model, to move into a tuition basis or some kind of like monthly same fee every month kind of scenario where we're starting to take away the pay per lesson idea. And this is something that has to do, this is a lot to do with business and how we think about our business and how we structure our business. And that's, if you want more information on that and you want to kind of have some better understanding of how to do that and how to kind of transition that way, you know, my favorite business coach is Michelle Marquardt DeVoe, of course. So, and I've mentioned her many times, and I will tag her in this video. But there are ways to transition out of the pay per lesson model and into a model that will allow you to have a lot more freedom in terms of how you set your cancellation policies. Okay, so once you are in that setup, here is some language you can put into your policies. Something like, ideally, we would love for you, the student, to be able to meet every week or however many times per semester, but we understand that that is not ideal for every person. And if that is not ideal for every person, meeting at the same time every single week and being able to be there every single week at the same time, that's terrific. Here are the other options. Here are the other things that we can do. So I see there are lots of comments coming up there, and I'm gonna take a look at them in just a minute once I'm done like sort of delivering the bulk of this. But here are, if you're that person, here are all the ways that we can work together. So you can set up a synchronous way to for folks who need to cancel last minute or who can't come to their lesson, right? You can have it synchronous, and we can do this online. We've all done some online work now. If you're not still, we are still in Ontario. We're on like full on lockdown here in Ontario. So but we all know that we can do online lessons now. So synchronous online lessons, if you've got someone, if you're working with someone who is, who needs to cancel because they're just, you know, maybe they can't drive, maybe they can't get there, maybe they have, you know, whatever. There are lots of reasons why I can't get to my lesson, and they would still like to have that lesson. Obviously, you can do it online. If they're at the beginning of a migraine, for example, or if they're in a place where they don't want to be on the screen, no problem. We can do a synchronous time together where we have a discussion around any topic you are interested in voice pedagogy or in singing. We can do a discussion around character development, and we can do that on the phone. If you would rather not like look at yourself in the screen or have the lights on from the camera, no problem. Let's do it on the phone. Let's call, let's talk. We can do a listening party, and we can do that over the phone too. I mean, it's not so great, but we can do that over the phone. We can have a listening party where we listen to several of my favorite, attend online. You can, if you're well enough to have an actual lesson online, then obviously just have the lesson online. That's no big deal. But if you're not well enough to sing or to have an actual lesson, that's fine too. Here's the way we can do an asynchronous or a synchronous session online. And if you'd rather not do synchronous, here are some ideas that you can do for asynchronous. So some asynchronous things can be, you can have a monthly book club, or a monthly character study, or a monthly musical study, or a monthly technique study, or a monthly journal paper study, or a monthly YouTube channel study. You can set up any of those things. And here's what you do. You offer this to every student in your studio. Whether you think they want it, whether you think you've got them figured out or not, whether they've told you they have something going on or not, or whether they've said to you, you know, I may miss my lessons. You offer to every single student in your studio. It's just part of your policies where you say, hey, if you would like to, we can have this monthly thing where we have a character that we're studying. Maybe we're studying a singer. Maybe we're studying a specific, I don't know, song. Maybe we're studying The Wizard of Oz. Who knows, right? Like, we can have this very specific thing that you and I are doing. And then when we can't have a lesson, no problem. I'm going to send you a whole bunch of, you're going to send me, you're going to either record maybe a Marco Polo recording, maybe just send me a video, maybe just send me a text message, maybe send me an email, maybe send me a voice message, and you're just going to talk about where you are on your journey in discovering this character, what great things you've discovered with this character. You can, as the teacher, you can develop some talking points around whatever the thing is that you're working on in that month. So the time that they're not spending with you in that hour lesson or in that half an hour time slot or whatever it is, that's fine. You're going to spend that time when they haven't, when they weren't able to come to their lesson, you're going to spend that time developing something really cool that's just for them, that they can work on, and that you two can have as the thing that you do asynchronously when they can't come for their lesson. Some things that you might want to do in advance, you can send articles, you can send books, journals, character studies, voice ped discussions. You can also say, hey, I'm sorry that you're not able to come to your lesson today. I've got 45 minutes that I would love to spend researching whatever you're interested in. So if you have a singer, if you're working with a singer, for example, who, I don't know, again, I'm going to come back to the Crohn's, say, for example. If you're working with a singer who has Crohn's, who has to cancel because they're in the hospital, they have a Crohn's flare-up and they're in the hospital, and you say to them, that's amazing. I hope you get better. I would love to see you the next time you're able to. And now I have this time available, and let me know, what would you like me to research for you? What information would you love to have about singing that you haven't had before? They might say, I would love to have all of the warm-up exercises on the planet. Terrific. You're going to go online and you're going to find a whole bunch of YouTube exercises, or you're going to record a whole bunch of warm-up exercises for them, video and and or just a sound exercises, or you can write them out for them and PDF them to them. You can do, or maybe they might say to you, hey, can you find all of the information out there on singing with Crohn's? Yes, I can. I can do that. I know exactly where to find that information. Nats has a whole bunch of information on that. What's it called? The Voice Foundation. There's lots of, the Journal of Voice has articles, like all of those. What would you like me to research? What would you like to know about in voice pedagogy, or just in you? Maybe you would like to know about all of the people who have ever sung Elphaba. Perfect. I'm going to put together a whole list of all the people and a listening list. Yeah, no, what's it called? A listening thing of all of the people who have ever sung Elphaba. Perfect. There you go. That's your, I'm going to spend my 45 minutes, my hour, my time that I would have spent working with you in person. I'm going to spend that time working for you and giving you this information. Yeah, I'll research whatever you want. A couple of other ideas around this is to have some flex weeks where folks can just go in, and if they know they're going to miss a lesson last minute for whatever reason, they can go in and throw on the flex and just say, like, you have an open week, maybe every 3 months or something like that, where you can go in and schedule another lesson. Or you can have, some other ideas are to have sort of a group, a studio class once a month. This doesn't work so well for lots of folks. The studio class isn't lots of folks' favorite things, but it may be useful for some folks. So you can have a studio class where that is part of the tuition package, and folks who miss a lesson or a time in the lesson, you're going to send them something to help them prepare for the studio class if they want to come to the studio class. You can also do, I love Marco Polo, so you can do some asynchronous. If you want to do some singing work, you can do some singing work through Marco Polo. Or, like I said, you can have them send, you can send videos of things that you would like them to explore. You can have them send you videos of things that they're interested in. The possibilities are literally endless. Maybe they're working on sight singing. Maybe they're a choral singer and they would really like to improve their sight singing skills. Terrific. You're going to find them the 3 top sight singing apps and send them to them with a little video of how to use those apps. Here's my 3 favorite sight singing apps, and you know what? There are lots of what are those called? Comment streams on the online teaching forums about apps that you can use. So maybe you're going to send them your 3 top sight singing apps, or rhythm learning apps, or terrific apps that you love that are related to anatomy. Maybe you'll send them your 3 top anatomy apps. Like I said, the possibilities are literally endless, and you can decide this. And like I said, you can offer this to your entire studio. So then you can also have, so say you have folks, you're working with teenagers, and maybe the teenagers need to take like the next 5 weeks off because they're working in their on their school play. I mean, they're probably not right now, but they're working their school play, or maybe they have soccer practice, or blah, blah, blah. Again, this doesn't have to be a pay to keep your spot kind of thing. This can be a, okay, you've got next 5 weeks you're in the school musical, and so those lesson times, I'm going to send you all the research for your character. I'm going to send you here's a listening list for your character. Listening list. It's something else, isn't it? It's a listening, I don't know. What's it called? Listing channel? No, there's a thing on YouTube. You can make a thing. Well, the possibilities are endless is all I'm saying. And this doesn't just then make sure that the folks who would normally, a playlist, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Christy. Yes, a playlist. Yeah. Thank you, Desmond. Playlist. Oh. So it doesn't have to be, this isn't something that just then works for the specific students who might ask for it, or who you might notice are constantly needing to miss lessons. It works for your entire studio. Everybody in the studio has this ability. They're still paying their monthly fee, they're still paying their monthly, you're still getting paid is the whole point here as well, but you're also then completely inclusive. Yeah, I was 100% thinking of Playlist Melody. I just want to go back on Facebook here and look at a couple of the comments and make sure. We require a 2-hour notice to qualify for a makeup lesson. Limit makeups to 1 per month. Yes. So there's part of, yes. And Christy, this is definitely something that I'm talking about right now that is a lot easier to introduce in an independent studio with a sole ownership. It's a little bit more, it can be a little bit more challenging to introduce in, say, a school setting, a music school setting. Obviously, it's more challenging in an academic setting where you have, where you really are paying per hour there, and the outcome is very specific, like you've got to prepare for this recital or whatever it is. So it can be a little bit more challenging. However, for an independent teacher, this is something that I pinky swear you can implement, and it will increase the inclusivity in your studio, not only for the students who might require a different kind of accommodation, but for all of your students. Like, all of your students benefit from this. What's the other ones here? Yes, attending online. Okay, yeah, great. So there's not too many comments anyway. So I hope this has been useful. I hope to kind of redirect the information, the idea around what it truly means to be inclusive, and what are some of the, I mean, this is one of the things that has really become so clear in 2020, especially, is that we have this phenomenal option. This online and asynchronous is like this amazing option. So it's blowing apart so many of the molds that we've had, right? Oh, good. I'm glad. Thank you. Like, it's really blowing apart so many of the molds and the things that the ways that we've thought about voice lessons, and the way that we've thought about delivering voice lessons and how we must do it. And also, you know, when we start to think about what am I really saying when I require someone to come every single week to a voice lesson, what am I really saying? In some ways, we might really be saying something we don't believe, or that we don't really want to be saying, or it may be unintentionally communicating something that we don't really want to communicate. So that's where I'm going to leave it today. Thank you so much, friends. If this is something that is working something like this out is of interest to you, I hope you'll get on my mailing list so that you'll be aware of when I'm working intentionally with small cohorts of teachers to do some application of this, some real, like, so where we get kind of nitty gritty with it and go like, wait, but this isn't working for this particular student, and then we're able to really do the good application of it as well. Take good care. Happy Wednesday. I may check in a little bit later this week as well with some other stuff, but for now, take good care. And happy voice petting.